This is a Benelli TRK502x, and it's basically China's attempt at making a small BMW GS. So in this video I'm going to tell you exactly what this thing is, find out if it's any good to ride, tell you all the things I like about it, tell you all the things I dislike about it, and then finally give you my conclusion on whether it's actually worth considering buying one of these Chinese baby BMW GS's. My name is Rick, let's go for a ride. So yeah, the most important things you need to know about this Benelli TRK502x. So let's start with the engine. This is a 47 horsepower 500cc parallel twin. So it is made for the A2 license here in Europe. Second thing you need to know is the weight. So make sure you're sitting down for this. This thing weighs a whopping 235 kilograms, which is basically as much as a full-sized BMW R1300 GS these days, which is pretty insane considering the fact that this is an A2 bike making only 47 horsepower. Third thing you need to know is the price. So this thing costs 8,600 euros, which is not cheap, but also not very expensive. So for some reference, the CF Moto 450 MT, which is another A2 compliant adventure bike that's sold over here, is around 800 euros cheaper than this. And then finally, another interesting thing to note is the ground clearance of this bike. So this thing has 220 millimeters of ground clearance, which is actually quite a lot because something like a Tenere 700 has 240 millimeters of ground clearance. So yeah, only 20 millimeters between that, which means if you do actually want to take this thing off-road, it should actually be pretty capable, disregarding the weight of course. Enough facts for now, let's hop on and see if this thing is actually any good to ride.
Alright, so first impression on the TRK502x. First standout feature is the engine. As soon as I picked this thing up and the lovely man from the dealership, he started it up, it sounds like a GS. It's crazy. Like this is just a pretty normal parallel twin, but it just has this Boxer-ish rumble to it. And when you ride it, it feels remarkably similar to a Boxer engine. And the sound is actually really nice. It's not too quiet, it's not too loud, it's got a really nice burble. But I do already have my first complaint, which is sadly related to the weight and the engine actually. So although it makes a nice amount of torque and it sounds really nice, you always just want a little bit more power. And I actually don't think you want a little bit more power, but you want a little bit less weight. It just feels like there's a bit too much weight for the engine to push around. When you ride it at like 4 or 5 tenths, so pretty far from the limit, it feels actually surprisingly satisfying. But then when you do want to make a quick overtake, or you are sitting near the traffic lights with some cars and you want to make a quick getaway, there isn't more. Let's give it some beans. Full throttle. Second thing I immediately noticed when I got on is that it is actually pretty tall. I'm 185 centimeters or 6 foot 1, and although I can flat foot this thing, I am definitely a lot more on tippy toes than I normally am, and it does add to the fact that this feels like a proper big bike because it is very big, it is quite heavy, it is quite high. It does feel like a proper big bike or a proper GS. And when you throw through some corners, it definitely inspires confidence like you would expect from a big bike. It feels really planted, really stable. I don't know if the suspension is the most high-spec thing in the world, but it definitely feels perfectly adequate. And the whole bike does feel like it has a bit of a playful nature because it has a nice sound and a decent amount of torque down low. You have a nice big handlebar, so you have good leverage over the bike. You're fully in control, you know. So yeah, you can definitely have some fun with this on a twisty road. Now, one of the things that is, I think, objectively just not very good are the brakes. Could also be partially due to the weight, of course. If you have less weight, it's easier to stop a bike. But they don't have a lot of feel, they don't have a lot of bite. And if you want to like properly do an emergency stop, you do have to squeeze really hard to get enough power out of the brakes. So yeah, I would definitely like to see an improvement on that. And it's the same for the rear brake, like not much feel when you're doing low speed maneuvers like this. The chassis, oh yeah, that is fun. So this far, the whole vibe I'm getting off of this bike is, it's actually surprisingly good to ride, but it could just do, the sound is good. It could just do with losing 30 kilos. Yeah, sounds good. Oh no, the camper van, why? Well, the upside of not having a lot of power and quite a lot of weight is that you do get to use the engine and hear the sound a lot. So that's nice. I just think it could do with just a little bit more power or just quite a lot less weight. Now there is a 700 version of this bike, which might solve that issue, and it's not actually terribly more expensive, but this is by far the best sold bike from Benelli. And I think also the most interesting one, because it doesn't have a lot of competition, you know. Yeah, you have the CF Moto 450 MT, but that's a lot more off-road biased. And to be honest, if you buy this thing, I don't think you're going to take it off-road, you know. It is, although you do have a nice bit of ground clearance, I do just think it's going to be way too heavy. And if you do want to go off-road, there are a lot more better options out there. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, beautiful. Hey, look at this, some GS people. Now this is a beautiful Dutch town we are entering right now. It's called Wijk bij Duurstede. And they have a really nice port over here, the harbor. But they also have like this really nice historic city center. So over here you can see the wall which was used for defending the city, I guess. And this is a popular destination for all kinds of bikers in summer, because you can sit by the water, grab a nice drink like over here, enjoy the view, look at your bike. And then you have this nice windmill over here, which is situated on top of this arch thing. It's a really nice town. Funny thing about this Benelli is that it is actually a very, very popular motorcycle in Italy. Like I've been to Italy a couple of times over the past few years, and you see these things around like a lot. Like on every street there is a Benelli TRK502x. And it has the Italian name, you know, it's Benelli. So the interesting thing about it is Benelli is an Italian brand. They've been around for a very long time, but I think maybe 5 or 10 years ago they got bought out by a Chinese firm. So I think all the production is taking place in China right now. And of course the Italians do love their Italian brands. So yeah, totally understand why this thing is so popular over there. So yeah, I figured I would just quickly stop and have a cheeky little iced coffee and a croissant. But I also wanted to talk about build quality. Since this is a Chinese made bike, I figured you might be interested in hearing how it is. And well, overall I would say it's pretty good. But there are some little things which show that it is not the most premium of bikes. So starting off with the switchgear, I mean, it feels quality enough, but some of the finishes are pretty like glossy and they don't look the best. So yeah, not the biggest fan of that. Secondly, this bike has an analog dash, which I really love. I really like the fact that it's still analog and not a TFT like we see on so many bikes. But again, the design is a bit busy and it is not particularly the nicest analog dash I've ever seen. Oh yeah, one more thing I might criticize is the fact that this is still a normal headlight, so not LED. So yeah, as you can see here, it does have these like LED daytime running lights. But yeah, this is just a normal halogen style bulb. These are LED indicators, which is nice. But yeah, I do just think that
Just having full LED lights would change the entire look of the bike, make it look a lot more modern, a lot more premium. But yeah, other than that, to be honest, it all looks pretty good. Now I'm just gonna enjoy my iced coffee and my cheeky little croissant. And yeah, we'll get back on the road.
One of the things which is crazy about this bike is how much it feels like a GS when you're riding it around town. Like you feel like the king of the roads pretty much, like a GS should, you know, like you're sitting up high, it's wide, it's big, it's heavy, it's burly, it sounds nice, you have good torque, it's very easy to ride, so you feel like you're riding gold around town. And I will say, when you're maneuvering it around, that's when you feel the weight. Like if you have to go outside of a parking space, you have to push it, or if you have to turn around somewhere, yeah, it's definitely not light, don't get me wrong, you definitely do notice it. But yeah, once you're up and moving, it is just so well balanced and it's so easy to throw around and tip in. It feels very GS-y. Engine is pretty smooth at this kind of speed. Like we're doing highway speeds now, 100 kilometers an hour, 62 miles an hour. Totally fine, totally comfortable. Barely any vibrations. The engine doesn't feel stressed. You still have some rolling power, even 6th gear. So yeah, in that sense, it's perfectly capable, perfectly fine, very enjoyable, just not very quick. And I have to confess something about this bike. I've been riding for like 4 hours now, and I still don't want to go home. Like, I think that might be one of the best tests for a motorcycle ride is, do you take the long way home? But this bike has made me not take any way home. Something about it just makes me want to keep riding today. And I do have to admit that it might also be because this is the kind of bike I would like. Two of the biggest factors for me are engine characteristic, and well, to be honest, this thing has a bunch of character. It sounds so nice, it has the burbles. It just feels like a small GS engine, which it is, which it should be. And secondly, I really like comfortable bikes because they just allow you to enjoy the ride like this, enjoy you to smash out as many kilometers, as many miles as you want. And then because you have a nice engine to keep you entertained, it's like the perfect balance between being able to cruise and relax, but then also having fun even when you're in traffic or riding through town and you can't go that fast or you don't have really nice roads in front of you. Whoop, whoop. It just makes you smile. From the moment I got on this, I actually smiled. And that's such a huge tell. I mean, you of course can't review a motorcycle when you've only ridden 5 minutes or 10 kilometers or whatever, but you do get a sense when you ride you ride around the corner, you ride outside of the street, you get a sense of whether a bike suits you or not. And just the second I rode away from the dealership, I smiled and I was like, yeah, this is a bit of me. And it still is. I mean, you discover some flaws, you discover some things you don't like. But all in all, the smile a bike puts on your face is all that matters, right?
So yeah, to sum up, where does that leave us? The Benelli TRK502. Is it just a Chinese copy of a BMW GS? Should you even consider buying one? Well, I'm sure you've already noticed watching this video, but I've kind of fallen in love with this thing. But of course it isn't perfect. There are some pretty big flaws with this bike. So first off, you have the weight. I mentioned it before, but 235 kilograms is literally the same weight as an R1300 GS, which has 3 or 4 times the horsepower. And you do notice it in the fact that the engine has some difficulty getting all the mass to move forward. It's not very energetic, it's not very eager to accelerate. And then secondly, the brakes. I mean, they're okay, but honestly I would like and expect a little bit more. And of course all of that could be fixed if you just removed 20, 30, 40 kilos of the bike. Of course that's easier said than done, but yeah, I do just think that's the biggest issue with this bike, and it shines kind of in the whole riding experience. That being said, it is just so charming. It's just so much fun to ride. The engine has so much character. It really gives you that big bike feel like you want on a GS, where you feel like the king of the road. So yeah, although it's definitely not perfect, there are some big flaws. Personally, I forgive it. So that being said, if you have enjoyed this video, 95% of the people who watch my videos are not subscribed. So it would mean a lot to me if you could hit the subscribe button. These bikes over here I actually hire myself. So these aren't fresh bikes, these are actually bikes I pay my own money to ride. And that's just because I love making videos, and yeah, I just would love to make this my job. So if you could, please hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one.